The Halifax Mooseheads split their weekend series against the St. John's Sea Dogs. We'll talk about that and much more along the QMJHL. Also, the Halifax Wanderers dropped their match over the weekend 3-1 against Vancouver FC, a roller coaster ride for that team as of late. Halifax Sports Talk, Andrew McGinnis, Dayton Camo with you once again to break all things down in the Atlantic Maritimes. How are you, Dayton?
Not too bad, not too bad. Had a great weekend. Went up to Toronto, had a college graduation, got to see the Blue Jays almost get closer to the AL East crown, which they now have. What about you?
I was pumped to see that. I was super excited. Got my fan hat on heavily this weekend, watching the Jays. Trying to just get excited about another Jays team and not just the team from many years ago with the Jose Bautista bat flip. It's time to have a new memory. It's time to create new memories with the Blue Jays. So I'm excited. And like I said to you last week, fall is in the air. We got 1 week until the NHL. The Q season is off and running. Things are getting interesting now in the CPL. So good time to be a sports fan. And I'll tell you what a treat it was really over the weekend. That Halifax Mooseheads and St. John Sea Dogs series I mentioned to you, and we talked about it last week together about how it was going to be. Sometimes this year we're going to see the not the always the home and home series, but the two-part series between teams, and we saw it with the Mooseheads in week one against the Charlottetown Islanders, and then the second time out back-to-back games at home against the Sea Dogs. And well, once again, similar to what we saw against Charlottetown, it was two completely different games.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing I want to touch on was something that came to my mind. There is a rule in the QMJHL now where teams in the regular season aren't allowed to fly, with the exception of when they go to Newfoundland. Now, I think that would be the only team that would allow them a flight. But when it comes to playoff times, they can take the charter jets and whatnot. But yeah, now to allow for more rest and stuff like that, better quality in gameplay, I think as well. The 2 game series, I'm not against it, I should say.
Hmm. Well,
But yeah,
it goes to show. I mean, we just saw it here this past weekend, and we saw it last weekend. So we already have multiple examples. The Mooseheads are 2-2, and in 2 games, we were like, "Man, this team's looking great." And then the other 2 games, it's like, okay, pump the brakes early in the season. So it's really been a tale of two different types of teams here so far.
yeah, definitely. And I think you mentioned this last week. When you have a team coming in one night, maybe they don't get the result they wanted. They have the time to go back, do some game study, look at some film, and try and break down their opponent for the next game. And I think that might be what happened to Halifax. Not exactly what happened to Halifax here this weekend, but definitely something that could have been a factor.
Yeah, well, let's get into it because last week they dropped the first one. And this week it was the opposite. I mean, good first game. Well, good ending to the first game, I guess we should say there. An exciting one. 4-3. And then, well, the next one a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely. The first game, uh, the Mooseheads never really got a lead until the third period when Quinn Kennedy put them up, and then Oleg Kulibiakin got the eventual game winner. It was kind of a back and forth game, but the Mooseheads did come out with 2 points. Danny Walters, the hometown kid, got the first goal, and that one got the crowd going. Patrick McNabb, he was another player that was kind of on the bench and sometimes in the press box for a lot of last season, working his way back into the lineup now, and it's great to see 17 turning 18-year-old really getting his foot in the door here in the QMJHL.
Absolutely. And I think early on, the Mooseheads coaching staff, the players, and all of us, we want to see the game be a little bit spread out. Like, as we know, QMJHL hockey, CHL hockey overall can be very top heavy. And you see that kind of early on. But man, when it gets to December, when it gets to January, when it gets to that time of year, even before that, depth is going to be very important. So you're not going to just be able to rely on your kill foils or your top guys. You're going to need everybody to kind of buy in. So we're seeing that here. Carrier, Kennedy, Kulepiakin. It's great to see. And Mensonin, a guy we talked about last week. You had that great clip we put on the socials there. If you're interested in buying a Moose jersey, this guy could be a guy for you right now. But yeah, 4-3 win and then a 5-2 loss, a little bit different there. Do you think that this Mooseheads team, despite obviously dropping one of the games, you mentioned hometown kid getting the crowd going. Do you think they're going to be one of those teams that does a lot better at home, like can really feed off the crowd? This team seems like kind of like that energy team. Like when they're going, when they're doing all the right things, they're playing a much better brand of hockey.
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing that comes down to it is the professional feel at Scotiabank Center. We talked about that as well. You go in there and you just feel like you're a pro. You're in an atmosphere. You're in a building that has up closewards to 8,000, 9,000 fans every weekend. And when you're playing in a building like that, opposed to a building in northern Quebec sometimes that carries maybe 2,500 per game, it's louder. You feed off that energy. And for a hometown guy like Danny Walters, like I just mentioned in the first game, who opened the scoring, that's got to be a feeling that you'll probably never forget.
Absolutely. And we can say the other side of things, the opponents coming in, they get fired up as well. If you're playing in that small town Quebec team, you're going to be at the Scotiabank Center, which I always want to call the Metro Center. So there's going to be a lot of scouts there as well. Maybe travel wise, maybe just the bigger press box. Who knows? But they want to impress, and they definitely want people to know that they're there as well. So as much as it's one of those things, and we know it because following the Habs, it's like that as well. Teams get fired up going in there. The Maple Leafs as well, MSG and the NHL, all kinds of the big arenas, teams coming in there. You get that little extra emphasis because you know how big it is to go into those arenas. But as you mentioned, the Mooseheads didn't exactly hold the lead the whole game in that first one. They kind of had to crawl back and kind of really fight for that win.
Yeah, definitely. I think one more reason that we didn't touch on, Friday night hockey is on Eastlink in the Maritime. So Cape Breton, Charlottetown, Halifax, those rinks on Friday night, you're on TV. Something that like you don't get the interviews when you're watching on CHL TV or Flow Hockey now. You don't have like a Mavs Gillis going down to do the interviews with the players on the ice. You get a 17-year-old, 18-year-old at the bench having an interview. It's something that they're probably doing for the first time and gives them a little bit of nerves, but it's also something that adds a little bit more to the broadcast, adds a little bit more to the players. So it's definitely something to throw in there.
For sure. I mean, it adds up. And like you said, the biggest thing, it brings that professional feel to them. So 4-3 win in the first one, from a 4-3 win to a 5-2 loss. And you were hyping it up on the last episode, which was our debut together. There was a big name coming to town, a first overall pick coming to town. And, you know, people want to watch them because they want to see probably, hopefully a future pro player and a guy that's going to make their mark. Obviously, they're cheering on the Halifax Mooseheads, but sometimes you would see a crowd get a little bit bigger, and it happens every year. There's certain players to watch coming in from out of town. Well, a hat trick. Who saw this coming here?
I don't know. I definitely didn't see it coming. He scored his first goal, second goal, and third goal in the QMJHL, all in this game. Some people would say he almost took over this game. ALEXIS Joseph, the first overall pick from this past year's draft. He's 6'4". I think he's around 200, 210 pounds. He's a big boy. And when you get someone that size out there on the ice, skating around with his agility, it's not too hard to take over the game like he did.
That's what they want out of him. That's what you want of a young player, to be able to hop right into the league, to have that confidence, because a lot of the times we just talked about it with the arena, with the travel, with the different aspects of playing in the CHL, it's the environment. It's not as much your skills, it's the environment. To be able to be that comfortable, like you said, number one, number two, and number three of your Q career. And, the point being 5-2 loss, a hat trick there. Mooseheads leading 2-1, lose that lead. And it's kind of funny. The one that they had the quick lead in, they can't keep it. And then the other one seemed like it was going to be more of a struggle. But typically, any game where a player gets a hat trick, their team's in pretty good shape here. So 4 games so far wrapped up in a bow for the Halifax Mooseheads, sitting pretty with a 2-2 record. How do you think they should be feeling right now? I just feel like there's been improvement. There's been a little bit of everything, but it's also, we've seen a tale of a little bit, I'd say 2 different teams at this point now. What do you think here? How should they be feeling on the bench about this team?
Well, I think they should be feeling just fine. Obviously, they got the new coach. We talked about that in the debut episode. They're 2-2. They're a young team. Last year, they were the youngest team in the QMJHL in 50 years. So this year, they come in and they make a little bit of moves. They bring in a 20-year-old and Connor McPherson. He helps the depth a little bit. Right now, he's on the fourth line. I talked about that in the game recap. I don't know why they stuck a fourth line or a 20-year-old on the fourth line after he has NCAA experience. He's coming back from the BCHL as well. But that's just something that I still can't wrap my head around. The only thing that the Mooseheads really have to worry about, in my opinion, is getting some offense 5-on-5. Because in that game against the Sea Dogs, both goals came on the power play. And if you want to get something going offensively, you're going to need some 5-on-5 offense to help you do that.
Absolutely, yeah. You need to get the 5-on-5. You can't just rely on the power play. One bright spot, though, about this team, and we've mentioned a lot of the names, but as much as I talk about depth being important, it is nice to see the bigger name players have stepped up early on. Like, you need the depth players, you need the fourth and third liners to play a role, and that will come down the line. But it's been really nice to see some of these bigger name players stepping up right away and having themselves a good start to the season. I think it's really huge for Danny Walters to have that performance he had on Friday. Confidence is a big thing. Get him going, get that offensive touch. And like I said, you talked about Kulibiakin, but I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to just slot right in. He's got the foot speed, he's got the shot. So hopefully these guys can just come right in and make a difference right away, make a statement. But 2-2 for them, not too bad. They should be okay with that. I don't think it's anything to be upset about, and lots to learn from both of those. Looking around the rest of the league, we had a lot of people enjoying us talking about the regiment and the Newfoundland fans and St. John's fans showing up, the lineups outside the door. I heard the concessions did very well. The beer sales were doing very well out there, but the fans were rowdy. You go from a big weekend one weekend and a little bit of a reality check in weekend number two. It's going to be okay, but it was a little bit of a party pooper for them to see kind of one great weekend go into this one against the Charlottetown Islanders.
Yeah, I will say, I bet you the bars on George Street after opening weekend got some sales.
Yeah.
That's one thing for sure. But we just mentioned it before the show. Newfoundland coming in, they swept the home opener weekend, and now they welcome Charlottetown to the Rock. They dropped both of them, and now they're in a situation where they have a fan base that they're not sure where they stick. Are they going to be a loyal fan base and pack that building even when they're not winning games? I know it's hard to do at any level, but this is a brand new team. This is a project that the QMJHL hoped worked or would hope would work. And I think that the Newfoundland fans have also kind of been waiting for a team that would stick around. The Growlers didn't stick around. The Ice Caps didn't stick around because of logistical issues. But since all these teams are closer, it's more reasonable for these teams to travel to Newfoundland. I don't think they have anything to worry about. So as long as their fans come up and stick up and show up to these games and stay loud like they were in opening weekend, they'll be fine.
And the Charlottetown Islanders are a team, they've been kind of building something up for the last few years as well. Like, they're going to be a team to watch this year, and they've got a lot of dangerous players, great coaching staff over there. So they come into Newfoundland, they get the job done. They put out some goals in that one. And we can't forget about the second game that Newfoundland won last weekend. It was like, what was it, 50 seconds left? They scored to push it to overtime. Like, it was dying minute, right? So, I mean, it's not always going to work out that way, but hey, they'll still be happy. You'll take that 2-2 for them here. Moncton and Cape Breton. Anything to say about that series?
That was a game that I did not see coming. Friday night, Moncton has the lead late, and then the brother of Mooseheads defenseman Malik Letalien, Elliot Letalien for the Cape Breton Eagles, scored the game-tying goal at 19:59 on the score sheet. 1 second left. It could have even been in the tenths of a second, like 1959 point something. I don't even know. But the puck crossed the goal line before the horn went off. sent these two teams to overtime. It was a great game, great finish. No one got anything done in overtime. Went to the shootout. Reese Peich, former Moosehead, was the only one to score for Cape Breton in the shootout, but it was Ryan Chudzinski and Preston Lounsbury who got it done for the Wildcats. The Wildcats get the 2 points and they get things done.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Wildcats are like this year, just because of all the hype around last year. With the coach and with the Mem Cop and with the big name players they had. Do you think they're still going to be able to put up some goals like they did last year? Do they still have it into them offensively?
Yeah, I think they do. They're still missing their biggest piece, Caleb Desnoyers. I think the Utah Mammoth said he would be out at least until mid-November. So they've got a little bit of waiting to do until they get Desnoyers back. But once they get him rolling in the lineup, they've got 8 Americans. They've got the most Americans on a QMJHL roster. So they're hoping that these guys coming up from the South will carry them forward. And they've also got Rudy Guimont in between the pipes. This guy didn't lose a game until he got to the Memorial Cup semifinals last year. So I think they're fine.
He's a brick wall. He's a brick wall. I wanted to ask you this. I didn't put this in the outline, but I wanted to ask you this. Your thoughts on the fact that the QMJHL and CHL overall could easily start one weekend later, and we wouldn't have to worry about it with the rookie camps and with kind of the training camps going on and the cuts, and how much you think it impacts the chemistry for some of these players that start slowly trickling back to the rosters. Like, I don't know how much you were able to see with Kilfoyle on the weekend and different players across the league, but chemistry is a huge deal, especially for now. We're going to see moving forward in the CHL with the new rules with the NCAA. There's going to be a little bit less continuity with the rosters. So the players that are at the NHL training camps and rookie camps, it's great for them. And they're obviously some of the best players on the team they're going back to, no doubt about it. But is there a chemistry issue for the next couple games, seeing as those players hadn't been around the team for the last couple weeks?
I'm so glad you brought this up. And I'm also so glad you didn't put this in the doc because I would have just typed away so much stuff. But first off, what I'll say is the NHL doesn't need to lengthen the preseason at all. We have guys in the preseason that obviously are not going to make NHL rosters, but they're saying, hey, we need a look at this guy for one more night from the Sioux before we send him back for no reason, right? So just shorten the preseason. Let these guys come back. You know they're gonna get sent back to your junior team. You've had a good look at them through rookie camp, and if they make it to main camp, you've had a good look at them definitely by then. So what's the point of keeping them around? Now for the CHL side of things, I think the CHL season starting sooner is good for the players that aren't at those camps because there was a new rule, or not rule, but a new statement from Hockey Canada, Alan Millar. He proposed a new change to Hockey Canada's selection camp come World Junior time. So they're actually going to be taking players late November instead of December now to try and create some more chemistry. They're going to take away that 2-game pre-tournament, the pre-tournament like camp that they do against the U Sports All-Stars. And they're actually going to do like a 2-3 month long camp with some other guys like from all over the league. It's going to take the top guys away from their CHL clubs for a longer period of time, which is going to hurt them a little bit. It helps Hockey Canada, hurts the CHL clubs, but the CHL clubs are in agreement with it. So it's definitely going to be something new for the CHL, but I'm excited to see how it all works out.
And we see that happen all the time, like around Christmas time. Some teams will just go on a massive losing streak before the shortened Christmas break, and then they even come out of the break post trade deadline, and you lose a couple games. Like, that's probably the biggest time if you're a QMJHL team to have consistency, to be dialed in, is when you lose a couple of those players. Like, you need to have your guys stepping up, secondary scorers stepping up, because and the thing is too, like you mentioned, there's guys that will go and try out and not make the team, right? They get sent back and they've still missed some time. And of course, the guys that make the team, they're gone for even longer. So it is a little bit of a distraction, but it's like we keep talking about depth's important, but we know how it is in the queue. Let's be honest. I think that a lot of the listeners out there would agree with us. The scoring in the queue overall in CHL hockey a lot of times comes from the top 3 or 4 guys. I mean, hockey in general, we see it across pros, but I'd say the depth scoring on some teams versus the others is a little bit less, right? So you really need those top dogs to be there with you. And that's why I'm looking forward to seeing this Mooseheads team this year that, as you've mentioned, last year really, really young team. This year, mix of youth, but still a little couple older players. But you need that secondary scoring, especially come Christmas time. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll tell you what, I liked watching that esports game against the juniors. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that.
Yeah, it was nice to see. One player that we didn't actually touch on, Liam Kilfoyle, he committed to Northeastern University for next season. I thought that was great for Kilfoyle. It's nice to see another Maritime boy making the jump to NCAA. So after this season, the Mooseheads unfortunately not going to have any more of Kilfoyle, but it's going to be good for his development. Going to Red Wings camp and now going to be going to Northeastern. I think it's safe to say he'll be in Grand Rapids in no time.
You know what? Great for him. And I think that that's okay as far as how this league and that new rule is going to go. Play a couple of years with the Mooseheads. He's been loyal to the Moose, been a great player for them. He goes to the Detroit training camp. He finds a spot in NCAA hockey. Why not, as a young athlete, be able to dip your toes in a couple different waters? I don't blame anybody for doing that. I wish him the best. Congratulations to him for that. And hey, like you said, hopefully he's in the minors before we know it and doesn't even have to worry about playing college hockey. He can just go right to playing pro hockey.
Definitely. It's going to be interesting to see who else the Mooseheads can pick up here. I know they've got Carlos Hondel. He's the only drafted player so far on the Mooseheads roster, but if they make a run for it, they could bring in some pieces, or maybe one of their prospects down the road will end up being picked up by an NHL team at a draft. It's always good to have a junior team with a couple of guys that have some credentials behind their name.
It is, and let's be honest, it puts fans in the seat, it gets people excited, and overall, you want to have that on your team, that status a little bit. You don't want to just have those guys that are popping out of nowhere. But we every year the Mooseheads seem to have that, and so far so good with some of these younger guys. All right, we said on the show we're going to touch a little bit on the Wanderers, and just going to mention it. We'll talk about it more probably throughout the season, and then of course next year when we do, we're going to get a full season to kind of take you guys through it as we're kind of hopping in with the Wanderers towards the end. Very different for us with the Halifax Mooseheads, how we're starting out doing the podcast at the start of the season here. But a very, very disappointing loss for the Halifax Wanderers over the weekend against Vancouver. 3-1 result. A lot of people questioning some of the lineup decisions, where certain players were, the fitness levels of some guys, why some guys weren't able to go in the starting 11. So it's been a roller coaster ride of a season for this Halifax Wanderers team. After last week, we're talking them up. We're talking up how they had a good one the previous week, a 3-0 win over Pacific. So you go from a 3-0 win to a 3-1 loss over Vancouver FC as they now dip their way down the table, Dayton. And I think this is a team that they can't afford any mental lapses, because if they do, it's not going to be good for them.
Definitely not. 3 games left to go. You just dropped one, 3-1 to Vancouver FC. Now you're out of a playoff spot. We just talked about them getting into a playoff spot. So it's going to be tough. You know you're right there on the cusp. 1 point is all it takes to put yourself tied back in it with York United. I believe that's who they're 1 point behind. And it's really just going to take a lot of mental strength. If they get behind on themselves, it could get dangerous quickly for Halifax this late in the season.
And I love when things work out the way that they do, and the way they have here in this situation, because very similar to Blue Jays going down to game 162 and had so many games against their division. Well, this one with the Wanderers coming up Saturday, October 4th at Wanderers grounds. taking on York United. Like you said, I mean, this is a team that they're competing with, and their home form has been much better, this Halifax Wanderers team. But the issue here is that in years past, they've been a draw team. Like this year, 10 wins, 5 draws, 10 losses. They're either a win or lose team. Like, as someone that didn't grow up playing soccer, I've always been a guy that doesn't like draws in this sport. And since following the Wanderers and since getting more into the game, I've learned to appreciate draws because it's a point. But they need a win here this weekend against York United. And then, of course, moving forward after that, they'll have Valor on the road, which won't really be a good one as far as the travel situation is concerned. However, Valor is a team that they hopefully can take advantage of. Their goal differential, minus 27. So when you look at the top handful of teams, the drop-off, goal differential for Calvary, 11. York United, 8. Wanderers, 5. Valor, minus 27. So it could be a huge 2-game swing for this Wanderers team if they get the W against York and they go into Valor and get the job done. So we're hoping for them, but as I was telling you backstage before we went live here, if anybody in Halifax is in that Facebook group, there's a Halifax Wanderers fan page Facebook group. I hate to say it, but the Facebook group is almost more entertaining after a loss than it is after a win in there. People freak out. Like, they are not happy. They're questioning coaches' decisions. And I got to say, some people do seem like they have good, like, soccer knowledge, but some people are just in there to complain. People weren't happy about the positions of players being put out there. They weren't happy with the lineup, the substitutions. So it's fair to say this is a big game coming up here for the Wanderers against York here on Saturday.
Definitely. And like you said, Halifax, we talked about this before. Halifax, they have the crowds and they have great fans. That might be what draws players here, along with the beauty of our province. But when I look at the schedule for York United, Halifax fans might have a little bit of weight lifted off their shoulders. York goes in to play Pacifico, and then they have a game against number 1 ranked Forge. And they go into Hamilton, they play Forge. It's not going to be pretty for them. So I think if they come out with a couple of points, maybe a couple of losses, Halifax fans might be a little bit more comfortable going into the postseason if the Wanderers pick up the 2 points that they need.
It's going to be interesting. So hope to see a good result there on Saturday, a big week of training for the Wanderers, and they'll be definitely motivated after what we saw. Hopefully, everything they were saying about the lineups and the fitness and what we saw, hopefully that was just a game that can draw a blank through. We can forget about it and move on to this coming weekend. As far as the Halifax Mooseheads are concerned, we'll get to them later in the week, but looking now, Baie-Comeau coming to town, and then the Halifax Mooseheads on Sunday. They are visiting the Moncton Wildcats at the Avenir Center. Those are the 2 games for this weekend. So busy schedule for the Mooseheads coming up. And then, of course, they have Rimouski in town next Thursday. And then they're back at it against Moncton. So twice in 2 weeks, they'll take on the Moncton Wildcats. And it seems like the Wildcats have been a rival of the Mooseheads. I know that's like always, they've called it, of course, the Battle of Nova Scotia against the Eagles. But I don't know about you. It seems like over the past few years, that rivalry has been with the Moncton Wildcats.
Yeah. It's funny you actually bring that up. This jersey right behind me is actually from the New Year's Eve Battle of Nova Scotia in 2013. But ever since the Wildcats and Mooseheads really started playing each other in the postseason, like especially it came down to 2 years ago. I remember when they were in the 2023 run of the playoffs, Moncton came in and they stole the first game. Halifax rolled over them the next 4, and Halifax was on their way to the final. But ever since then, Moncton's kind of been building a team up from the ground. They've now got Gardner McDougall, and I think this is going to be a good one. 2 back-to-back weekends with Moncton. Why not?
All right, well, it's going to be an exciting time in Halifax coming up here with the Mooseheads, with the Wanderers, the Q. Very exciting so far, and a lot of teams showing what they have. So we'll find over the next few weeks who the real teams are. But as of now, it's been very, very tight league, and all kinds of more great stuff to get to. And of course, we cannot wait to talk to you guys about the Halifax Thunderbirds. Planning on getting some guests on the show as well. Feel free to let us know on our social media feeds who you guys think we should have on as guests, whether it's to talk hockey, whether it's to talk European football, as we call it, soccer here with the Wanderers, or of course the Thunderbirds. Cannot wait to talk about it all. But guys, if you're listening on podcasts, please leave us a review, 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. It really does help us out a lot. And make sure you follow us, Halifax Sports Talk, across all social media feeds. It's HFX Sports Talk for the most part, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Except for
HFX Sports Talk.
TikTok. TikTok, spell it out.
Okay. TikTok, spell it out. HFX Sports Talk, every place you can find us. All right, guys. Look forward to talking with you every single week. We'll see you next time for some game previews and much, much more. Dayton Camo, Andrew McGinnis signing out. We'll see you next time.